They say he's cold. They say he gave up on love. They whisper that maybe he just couldn't keep a woman. But they don't know the story. They don't know the peace he fought for or the price he paid to protect it. Because for many older men, staying single isn't about bitterness. It's about wisdom. It's not that he doesn't love women. It's that he finally loves himself enough to say no to what hurts. So if you've ever felt that shift inside, where silence feels safer than romance, where clarity feels better than chasing, this one's for you. Here are 18 reasons why more and more older men are choosing peace over partnership, and they don't regret it. Divorce didn't just hurt, it reshaped him. He didn't walk away easily. He stayed, long after the affection faded, long after the conversations turned cold. He stayed because he believed in forever, because that's what men do. They honor the commitment. But eventually, forever broke not with a scream, but with silence. And when the papers were signed, he didn't just lose a house or a bank account. He lost the man he used to be. A man who believed effort was enough, that if he gave more, tried harder, stayed longer, it would heal. But it didn't. What he got instead was courtroom tension, financial hemorrhage, and emotional ruin. He learned that in love, being the one who holds on too long can be the most expensive lesson of all. So now, when someone mentions marriage, he doesn't argue. He just breathes slower, wiser, because the man who's been gutted and rebuilt doesn't fear marriage. He just fears becoming that broken man again. He's not avoiding love, he's avoiding destruction. He still believes in connection, still believes in softness, in warmth, in two hands meeting in the middle, but not if it costs him his mind, his focus, his peace. See, he's been there, in the kind of love where every word felt like a test, where silence meant punishment, where he walked on eggshells just to keep the peace and bled quietly when it cracked anyway. Now, he doesn't flinch when people ask why he's single. He simply smiles and says, "I'm not hiding from love. I'm just not interested in bleeding for it anymore." Because love, if real, should build, not break. Should hold, not hollow. He's not looking for someone to complete him. That version of him, the boy who believed in rescue, is long gone. The man he is now? Whole, rooted, unwilling to hand over his stability for chemistry alone. So if love comes, it must join his peace, not destroy it. Peace feels better than presence. He used to mistake presence for partnership, thought that having someone beside him meant he was loved. Even when that presence brought tension, even when the air in the room grew sharp, heavy, and filled with unsaid things. But over time he learned, noise can wear a smile, chaos can dress up as care. And now, he'd rather eat dinner alone at a quiet table than across from someone who weaponizes every glance, every silence, every sigh. He's cleaned his home, he's rebuilt his rhythm, the floors are quiet, the mornings his own. And that kind of peace, it's not empty, it's earned. She might be stunning, she might be intelligent, charismatic, full of life. But if her presence brings the need to perform, to explain, to protect his soul from the one sharing his bed, he's out. Because once a man has survived emotional turbulence, a calm room feels like heaven. And if love ever re-enters, it better feel like quiet safety, or not at all. He doesn't trust the mask anymore. He remembers how it used to feel, the sweetness in her voice, the thoughtful gestures, the way she leaned in when he spoke like he was the only man in the world. But now, he knows better, because too many times, that warmth was temporary, just long enough to get the ring, the title, the security. Then came the shift. The smiles faded, the effort vanished, the kindness turned into correction. And suddenly, the woman he loved became someone who resented who he was. He doesn't blame her. He doesn't even hate her. But he learned the hard way. The courting version isn't always the permanent one. So now, when he meets someone new, he doesn't fall for charm. He watches patterns. He listens to tone beneath the words. He pays attention to how she treats herself and others when no one's looking. Because love should never be a bait and switch. And if it is, he'd rather wait alone than fall for another mask that melts the moment he lets his guard down. He's done shrinking to be chosen. He used to make himself smaller, not physically, emotionally. He softened his voice, swallowed his opinions, laughed at jokes that cut too close, all to keep the peace, all to avoid hearing, "You're too much," or "Why can't you just let it go?" But each time he did, a part of him disappeared. His fire dulled, his spine bent, until one day he barely recognized the man in the mirror. Now, he doesn't argue. He doesn't beg to be understood. He simply exists fully. He's learned that any love that requires self-erasure isn't love. It's survival. And he's not surviving anymore. He's living. So if someone comes into his world and asks him to dim his light just to stay, he'll walk, because he'd rather be alone and whole than together and half alive. He's not competing with his partner. He's done playing tug-of-war in his own home. In his younger years, he mistook resistance for strength, thought fiery debates and constant pushback meant he'd found an equal. But now, he doesn't want to battle after work. He doesn't want every decision to feel like a negotiation. He doesn't want to justify his every move or explain his every instinct. He wants harmony, not submission, not control. Just cooperation, the kind that doesn't come with ego or scorekeeping. He's not threatened by a strong woman. He just no longer sees strength as contradiction. Because love isn't about one leading and one following. It's about two people walking the same direction, at the same pace. And if she can't walk with him, if every step together feels like a contest of will or wit, he'll slow down, let go, and walk on. Not because he's weak, but because a man who's built peace from the rubble won't let anyone turn it into a war zone. The old marriage model failed him. He bought into it, the fairy tale, the happy wife, happy life promise. He gave more, spoke less, said yes when he meant maybe, chose harmony over honesty again and again. At first, it seemed noble. He thought self-sacrifice was love, thought silence was strength. But slowly, it became a trap. He became a shell of himself, present, but not there. Financially drained, emotionally invisible. Every step forward felt like walking a tightrope made of expectations. And when it all collapsed, he wasn't angry. He was empty. Now, he knows. A marriage where one person carries the weight while the other dictates the terms is not a partnership. It's servitude with lipstick. He no longer buys the formula that sold him peace, but delivered quiet despair. From now on, love has to be built on mutual strength or not at all. He's finally being valued, without chasing. There was a time when he had to prove himself, had to earn attention with status, earn affection with effort, earn loyalty with tolerance. And for years he played the game, bent over backwards, smiled through disrespect, chased women who didn't see him only what he could provide. But now, something shifted. He no longer chases, because he no longer needs to be chosen by someone who doesn't see his worth before the resume. He brings stability, clarity, a life he's built with care, and he offers it not to be validated, but to be matched. He's not interested in being impressive anymore. He's interested in being real. And if that's too quiet for someone used to loud attention, then they're not for him. Because when a man finally values himself, he doesn't chase energy that doesn't meet him halfway. He wants legacy, not lust. He's lived the thrill, felt the rush of attraction, the flirtation, the early spark. But at this stage of life, he craves something deeper. Not a beautiful body, but a beautiful presence. Not a fun weekend, but a steady decade. He doesn't care how many likes she gets. He cares how she listens, how she treats people when no one's watching, how she handles silence, conflict, and truth. Because lust is loud. But legacy? Legacy is quiet. It's built. It's tended. He wants someone who doesn't just excite him, but expands him. Someone who can walk beside him in purpose, not distract him from it. He's not looking to be impressed anymore. He's looking to be aligned. And if love doesn't help build something lasting, he won't tear down what he's built just to feel desired for a moment. If she doesn't match his standard, he walks. He's not arrogant. He's aligned. For years he compromised, lowered the bar, made excuses, told himself that potential was enough, that if he just waited or loved harder, she'd meet him there. But now, he doesn't invest in maybe. He doesn't hope for someone to catch up. He's done the work on his finances, his body, his mind, his soul, and he's not handing that over to someone who sees his discipline as controlling, his structure as cold, or his boundaries as burdens. He doesn't need loud passion. He needs quiet compatibility. So if she can't match his peace, if her values collide with his rhythm, if her world pulls him off course instead of strengthening his focus, he walks, not out of ego, but out of respect for himself and for the life he's worked too hard to protect. He's felt more peace alone than in most relationships. It's not something he says out loud often, but in his quiet moments, with the television off and the lights dim, he knows the truth. He slept better alone than he ever did beside someone who resented him. He's felt safer in silence than in rooms filled with shallow affection. He's experienced more peace making coffee alone at 6 a.m. than sitting across from someone who made him feel invisible for years. And the irony? He once feared loneliness, thought being single meant failure. But now, he sees how much noise he tolerated just to avoid being alone. And he won't do it again. Because the older he gets, the more he values his peace not as a bonus, but as a requirement. If a relationship adds tension instead of tranquility, he doesn't cling. It chooses freedom even if it's quiet. He's not naive anymore. There was a time when he gave trust, like candy. When someone smiled sweetly, he believed it. When they said, "I would never hurt you," he took them at their word. He saw the world through a hopeful lens and paid for it in heartbreak. He's been lied to with loving eyes, used by people who praised him publicly, betrayed by people he defended. Now, he doesn't lead with suspicion, but he leads with observation. He listens more than he speaks. He watches how someone treats the waiter, the janitor, the dog. He reads between the lines of charm. He doesn't open his world quickly, not because he's bitter, but because he's wise. Time taught him that the loudest promises often come from the quietest red flags. So now, he trusts slowly, loves consciously, and gives himself not fully, not blindly, but in proportion to what's real. He's done performing romance. He used to rehearse love, pick the right restaurants, said all the sweet lines, read dating advice like it was gospel. And for what? To impress women who wanted the idea of him, not the actual man. He remembers planning dates like auditions, dressing for approval, laughing on cue, masking his exhaustion just to seem fun. Now, he doesn't act. He shows up, as he is. Calm, clear, grounded. If that's not exciting enough, that's okay. Because he's not in the business of entertaining anymore. He's not trying to win hearts with theater. Romance without realness is performance. And he's already lived that scene. Now, love must begin with truth, or it doesn't begin at all. Modern dating feels like poison. He downloaded the apps, tried the endless swiping, had conversations that felt like interviews with no job at the end. And what did he find? Filters, fake intimacy, more attention to aesthetics than to values. Modern dating isn't built for men like him. Men who move slowly, who speak deeply, who don't see women as entertainment but as connection. He doesn't want to text all day. He wants presence, not pretense. He's not impressed by selfies. He's moved by sincerity. But these days, it feels like dating is a digital marketplace, and love has been replaced with algorithms and avatars. So now, he opts out. He chooses to live offline, and if connection happens, it'll be through real moments, not rehearsed messages or curated timelines, because he's not seeking swipes. He's seeking soul. He's lost interest in sex that lacks soul. There was a time when physical connection felt like a win, a validation, a temporary bandage for deeper loneliness. But now, it feels empty without intimacy, loud without meaning, performative without depth. He still desires closeness, still wants to be touched, held, seen, but not if it's transactional, not if it's done out of habit or obligation. He's no longer aroused by availability. He's moved by emotional resonance. He wants someone who understands that intimacy isn't just physical, it's how you breathe together in silence, how you touch with presence, how you make someone feel safe in your arms, not just excited. He's not ashamed of slowing down. He's proud of evolving, because what he wants now isn't just heat. It's warmth, the kind that lingers long after the lights go out. He takes his health seriously now. In his younger years, he took his body for granted. He stayed up late, ate fast, skipped rest, and called it being strong. But after Heltritz, strength changed shape. Now, it's not about muscle. It's about movement. It's not about appearance. It's about energy having enough to get through the day with clarity and calm. So he moves more, sleeps earlier, drinks water, protects his mornings like sacred ground, because what good is peace if your body can't carry it? He's seen too many friends fall not from weakness, but from neglect. He doesn't need to run marathons, but he needs to walk tall, needs to stretch without pain, to rise from chairs without a groan. This stage of life isn't about impressing others. It's about honoring yourself, so that if love finds him again, he can offer not just his heart, but his full presence. He's not here to fix anyone. He's been there, dated the wounded bird, fell for the project with potential, believed he could love someone into healing. But each time, he ended up exhausted, not because they were broken, but because he kept trying to carry someone else's pain before they were ready to carry their own. He's not cold, he's not heartless, but he's done being someone's recovery plan. Now, he wants a woman who's done her own work, who doesn't look at him as a savior but a partner, who doesn't need to be rescued but respected. He doesn't need perfection, but he does need emotional maturity. If she's still blaming her past, still fighting ghosts, still hoping he'll prove her pain wrong, he won't sign up for that anymore, because love isn't healing when it's lopsided. It's just a slower kind of damage. He didn't give up on love. He gave up on losing himself. They whisper, "He's cold now. He must have been hurt. He probably just gave up on women." But they're wrong. He didn't give up on love. He gave up on shrinking, on bleeding, on explaining, on defending himself inside something that was supposed to feel like home. He gave up on being chosen, at the cost of choosing himself. And that's not bitterness. That's clarity. Because once a man tastes inner peace, the kind that isn't fragile or dependent, he stops chasing storms just to feel alive. He doesn't need drama to feel desired. He doesn't need chaos to feel connected. He needs presence, truth, stillness that's shared, not stolen. So if love ever returns, it will meet him on new terms. Not because he's hard, but because he's finally soft in a safe place. So why are so many older men staying single today? Because they've lived enough years to know a relationship that costs your identity isn't worth the romance. They're not angry. They're aware. They've seen what happens when you pour too much into the wrong places. They've carried regret in silence. They've handed out second chances that never came back clean. Now, they don't chase. They choose. They don't rush to be understood. They listen for who understands them without the performance. Because after 60, being loved is no longer the goal. Being respected, being seen, being at peace with who you are and who you're with, that's everything. So if you felt this shift too, if you know what it means to trade intensity for stillness and flattery for depth, drop a key comment. I didn't give up on love. I gave myself back to peace. Dibbly. Because sometimes the greatest love story a man lives is the one where he stops chasing noise and starts protecting the quiet that saved him.